The fragile truce across the Gulf was pushed to the brink in the early hours of June 3rd. Iranian drones and missiles hit Kuwait International Airport, severely damaging Terminal 1 and throwing the country's main civilian gateway into crisis. Flights were suspended and inbound traffic was diverted as Kuwaiti authorities scrambled to secure the airport. Kuwaiti officials confirmed that hostile drones struck the airport's passenger building as part of a wider barrage. The civilian toll was severe enough to force a full emergency response inside one of the Gulf's busiest transit hubs. Kuwait's health ministry confirmed that at least 63 people were wounded, including international travelers, airport staff, and transport workers. 25 ambulances were deployed. Hospitals began receiving wounded passengers and airport workers with serious blast-related injuries, though the exact medical breakdown remains limited in public reporting. One person was confirmed dead, and the smoke rising from one of the Gulf's busiest airports made clear that the war had spilled into a civilian space no ceasefire language could really shield. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed responsibility for the attack. According to a statement carried by Iranian state media, the IRGC said the strikes were retaliation for what it described as American and Israeli aggression against Iran's Qeshm Island, including a strike on a telecommunications tower and a separate attack on an Iranian oil tanker near the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state media said the IRGC targeted what it called military facilities in a regional country and also claimed a strike connected to the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Iran's public messaging initially emphasized retaliation and regional targets more than detailed public naming, while Kuwait itself confirmed the incoming attack. A P reported that an Indian national was killed in the strike, adding an immediate international dimension to the airport attack. Indian officials moved to assist affected nationals after the attack, but the full scope of embassy coordination has not been clearly detailed in strong public reporting. The death of a foreign national inside a civilian airport in a country that is not formally at war with Iran changes the political dimension of this conflict. Kuwait hosts a large expatriate population. The airport is a transit hub used by millions of international travelers. Striking it does not just damage a building, it puts every government with citizens on the ground in Kuwait in a position where it has to respond, at minimum diplomatically, to an attack that killed or wounded people who had nothing to do with the war. The airport strike was not an isolated event. The US said Iran also launched attacks toward Kuwait and Bahrain the same day, though Washington said not all of those projectiles reached their intended targets. The IRGC's own statement referenced a strike on the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, though Washington said those projectiles did not reach their targets. The combination of drone strikes on a civilian airport, ballistic missile launches toward two Gulf states, and IRGC claims of targeting naval headquarters represents one of the broadest Iranian operations since the ceasefire was announced. The strikes came as Iranian semi-official news agencies, Fars and Tasnim, reported that Tehran's negotiators had stopped communicating with ceasefire mediators. Tasnim said the suspension of contacts was tied to escalating tensions over Israel's operations in Lebanon, a linkage Reuters separately reported as central to the diplomatic breakdown. US President Trump insisted the talks were continuing, but two Iranian news agencies and at least one regional official said Iran had gone silent. If that account holds, the diplomatic track that was supposed to contain this escalation is no longer functioning in any reliable way. The ceasefire that was already being violated by both sides may now lack even the back-channel communication that kept it from collapsing entirely. So this is what June 3rd produced. Iranian drones struck Terminal 1 of Kuwait International Airport. 63 people were injured. One person was killed. Injuries include cerebral hemorrhages and traumatic amputations. Kuwait suspended all commercial flights. The IRGC claimed responsibility. Iran also launched missiles at Kuwait and Bahrain. Mediators lost contact with Tehran, and a civilian passenger terminal in a Gulf state that hosts American forces became the newest point of impact in a war that was supposed to be under a ceasefire. The war is no longer confined to the strait, to military bases, or to the skies over Iran. It has now hit a passenger terminal where civilians were waiting for flight.
We said goodbye to the language of threats 47 years ago. None of the Western parties, when they talk about the Islamic Republic of Iran, can speak using the language of threats. We make our own decisions based on the interests and rights of the Iranian nation. lifting what they call a naval blockade was an illegal act from the very beginning. It was both a violation of the ceasefire and a disruption to the freedom of international navigation. We have to see if they will actually act on their words in practice or if it's just a propaganda claim. If they do this, it means stopping the wrong thing. A few weeks ago, they shouldn't have taken such action in the first place. Regarding the agreement, as I mentioned up to this moment that I am speaking to you, the exchange of messages is, of course, continuing. The agreement has not been finalized. Other points that have been mentioned, for instance, regarding the nuclear issue, again, I emphasize that at this stage we are focused on ending the war. Therefore, we have no talks about the details of the nuclear issue at this stage. Regarding the Strait of Hormuz, the situation is also clear. Again, here I must mention 2 points. First, that from the beginning, the American sides have deliberately distorted the reality. The Strait of Hormuz, since March 1st, after the illegal and aggressive attack by the US and the Zionist regime against Iran, was placed under special measures by Iran as the coastal state. Yes, the Strait of Hormuz is closed to hostile vessels, to military ships, but during the same period, commercial ships in coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran have transited through this route. Regarding how the future management of the Strait of Hormuz will be, well, this is a matter related to the coastal states of the strait, namely Iran and Oman. Just today, you witnessed that Dr. Araghchi and his counterpart, Mr. Al-Busaidi, the foreign minister of Oman, had a telephone conversation, and one of the topics they discussed was this very issue. Iran and Oman have adopted a very responsible approach towards safety and security in the Strait of Hormuz, and they intend to, both in line with preserving their own national security and interests, and in line with the benefit of the international community, adopt mechanisms to ensure the safe transit of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is located within the territorial waters of Iran and Oman. We faced a special situation and we cannot ignore this situation and this experience. Certainly, Iran and Oman, as two responsible countries, must adopt mechanisms that, as I said, both preserve their own national interests and security as coastal states, and also reassure the international community that shipping through this route is carried out safely. At this stage, our focus is on ending the war. Regarding the details of the discussions related to enrichment and the issue of Iran's enriched uranium, we have no talks at this stage.